So now that you've completed your setup of your development environment and whatever option you chose, you did at the end of the last assignment set up the URL for your public repo, and that's what you're going to need for this assignment. So I have it up in another tab. This is what it should look like, and it is rendering the README file right now. We're going to change that in this assignment, and not for the root, and that's what this is representing of the URL and also of the repo. But we will end up creating a subdirectory and then we'll change our URL to then include that, and then we'll see our files rendered. And then, so I just want to move through the tabs I have open so you can see. I also have open GitHub, and so GitHub, when you open it from a tab, right? So we're looking at the website GitHub where our files are located, but we're doing work in whatever development environment we've set up. And so I have also set up here is a code space for my public repo, right? So if for some reason you didn't do that in the steps before, you're going to need to do that now. And that's where you would go over here and you'd choose code space and then create it. Now, for you, those of you using local, I'll just move over to that repo right here. Now, one thing you can do, and it's not bad to do, is I'm going to open, and again, this is only on local, right? And I'm going to open just the public itself, right? So the public, now you don't have to. You could have left it the way it was. It would have been totally fine. What we're about to do will work either way. I just wanted to give you that because sometimes there's just benefits to doing this, but I just want you to know how to move back and forth. And I'm going to go ahead and close that welcome message. So in here, right, we have the public. Now, because the reason I have made these different colors was so when I move back and forth, because what we're about to do is going to be pretty much the same for wherever your development environment is. Okay, so let's look at now going back here. Let's actually move to the assignment. Okay, we'll go to next. So this is your week 1 who's in the house. And this is, what I just went over. Make sure you've cloned your public if for some reason you didn't, or set up a code space for it. So let's create a folder in your public repo, right? And we're going to name it W1. And I do want these to be lowercase, no spaces, and then 1 for week 1. So I'm going to do it first in the code space here. Okay, so if you haven't seen this before, but we actually did it in the setup. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit the new folder. I'm going to call it W1. Okay, so then that is my new folder. I won't see any change in my Git status because just creating the folder does not do that. And I can do the same thing over here where I do W1. Okay, okay. So now in here, this is the README file from the root. So I'm going to close it just to have that closed. And now in that W1 directory, that folder, okay, I'm going to create a file. So hang out on these icons to see the difference between a file and a folder. Okay, so we're going to create another new file in this inside this folder. So make sure you've highlighted this folder before you do this step. And then we'll do index.html. Very important, no spaces, lowercase on this file name. Okay, now the reason this is important is by its nature, and I'm going to go ahead and do this over in the local as well, just to show you, because VS Code recognizes based on the extension, oh hey, this is an index file, or really this is an HTML file. It doesn't necessarily know it's an index file. What knows it's an index file is when we actually go to look at the URL. Okay, so now I have that. I'll move back over here, so you should be following along. So now I do have, I'm already getting, right? So in this case, I could do git status, right? Just to see, yeah, hey, I have some untracked files, but you don't have to do any commits yet. We're still following along. And remember, auto saves on, so automatically as soon as you code, it is saved, but it's not, it doesn't have the git workflow done, which is a different type of save. So you could think about it that way. So in here, look down at your keyboard, find the explanation. Okay, the explanation character, in this case, highlights an IMIT abbreviation. And what that is a built-in nice, I guess it's actually not an extension. We're going to learn extensions in a minute. It's just built in. And so if I do that and hit tab, what will happen here is the HTML file will just render the required tags that you need to have. I'm going to do the same thing over locally, find that, hit tab. And by the way, I can tell here that that is what is about to happen as soon, and the tab is what activates it. Okay? Okay, so we've done that. And so now really, let's just, create a little week one. Let's do this H1. H1, heading 1, if you haven't had any HTML, hit tab will automatically create that beginning and ending tab. And and this may not be my first web page, right? But in case it is, and if it's your 100th, you can put that, okay? So in this case, I'm going to do the same thing over in my local, but because I don't want to have you watch me type it all, I'm going to go from title. Again, just do this in your, right? Okay. And actually what I could do here, and this might be helpful, is that in here I'll do local, right? And in here, right, I'll do code space. Because once we get to the actual output, it won't matter. But it kind of is nice to know, and this is part of what you'll end up, I think, answering here. Okay, so now we've set up the index file. Okay, we've walked through that part of it. Now we're going to create the first JS file. Now I'm going to call this file, and I suggest you do the same main, because later we're going to end up creating modules. Okay, so let's do that. So now in here, let's create another file. Okay, so now I'm actually going to be consistent and start from the code space. I'm going to go in here. Now, because I've highlighted inside of W1, I could also be here. It'd be fine, right? But I'm going to go here and I'm going to hit main.js. Again, lowercase, no spaces, .js tells, in this case, and you can see already, depending on how you have your code space set up, but for me, and I suspect for you, you will see these little icons indicating what kind of files these are. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing locally, right? I'll go ahead and go here and go main.js. Cool. And again, I get that nice little icons. And it's probably, if I suspect it's down in here where file icon theme might be selected. Okay, so let's actually write our first, and this is very common, right? And let's do, and in this case I'm going to use double quotes. So console.log you're going to learn, but it's a command that actually whatever is in the parentheses, so console.log is actually a built-in method that we have access to because of the way we write code. And so I'll say week 1, hello world. Okay? All right. Now at the end of the line we're going to put a semicolon, and we'll talk about all these things in a little more going forward, but for today we're just kind of getting through it. Okay, so now we have our first line of JavaScript. We have a JavaScript file, we have an index file, and we're going to end up now, and by the way, this is not complete, but I want to stop here and have you load an extension, because this extension is really important for whatever environment you're using. So in here, in VS Code, whether that is on CodeSpace or local, you have an extensions tab. You come in here and you type live server. And when you find live server, it should look like this first one, 4.5 stars, 58.1 million downloads. That's a huge amount. Obviously very common to use, and go ahead and hit install. And while that's installing, I'll do the same thing on local, live. I think I already have it on here, right? Live server. Yeah, I already have it. So do that same thing and enable it here. And then once you have that, go ahead and drop that extension, because that's just a tab that shows up. And on CodeSpace, and you probably got something on local as well, I just installed activation load time improve. So in this case, CodeSpace Hey said, I'm going to do some things to make this load a little faster. I'm going to go ahead and stop that. I'm going to go ahead and drop the extension. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the file listing. So now have your screen looking like this. Okay. So in this case, we're going to click this in a minute. If you go down to the bottom, find Go Live, right? So in local, it's Go Live, and in CodeSpace, matter of fact, let me make my CodeSpace just a little bigger so it's a little more comparable, but there is Go Live. Now, on CodeSpace, you have additional one thing that will show up, and let's actually do them both. So let's go ahead, and by the way, have your index file highlighted before you do this. And the reason is that, and it will generally work even if you don't, but once we get into creating these folders, and you'll see actually what I'm gonna mean, what I mean, and what I'm referring to in a minute. So let's actually just see it. Let's go ahead, Go Live. Now, in this case, I'm going to come back. There's another folder that got loaded, or another tab. And back here, there's some things that talked about, like here it started the live, and this is in CodeSpace. And the other one you can just stop as well. But then you get this little port 5500. Cool, it's listed. And now this is actually what I was referring to. Even though I had the index file open, the root in this case, let me go back here, the root from which, because I've opened pub, it gives me whatever is accessible to me from that public, meaning public is the root. Root just means the beginning directory from which things then are run, okay? Okay, so let's actually do this local as well and see if there's any difference. I'll highlight the index page. Okay, cool. And then let's go ahead and do it here. Now, this is interesting, right? So on the local, because of the way I've opened it, it actually automatically opened that. But on CodeSpace, I needed it additionally to click on W1, and then I saw it. Okay, so just you can see the kind of the minor differences, but there are differences here. Okay, so now that we have that, one of the things you're going to learn early on, and you'll do this, is right click inside the page itself and hit inspect. Now, I recommend using Chrome for this class because I use it, and everything that I'm going to show you, I recommend. If you can translate into whatever your browser, that's cool as well. It's just for most people, I recommend doing that. So there's a keyboard shortcut as well, but I'm going to hit inspect. And now I'm going to see this. Now I'm going to do the same thing because I have the other tab open for local. I'm going to hit inspect because at this point it doesn't matter what you're using, okay? It doesn't matter if it's local or if it's CodeSpace. You're looking at code that you have written at this point, okay? Or actually you and VS Code wrote because of the emit thing. Okay, so now in here, if yours looks like this, else if it doesn't, right, you can just kind of play around with having the docs show up in particular places. Now I like this because my console's here. And in this case, I could also click here. I could click on sources. This shows me. Now, what's interesting here, and let me do the same thing over here. Okay, I'm going to click on sources. I'm going to go here. And now, in this case, notice a difference, right? When I'm locally, actually did see the index file, but when I was on CodeSpace, I didn't, but it actually showed up. So I'm going to actually refresh the page to see if it shows up. And it doesn't. That's very interesting. Makes me wonder to do a little research about why. But it's not also a big deal at this point. So I'm going to go back to elements. So on both of these, let's make sure we have elements selected. So now we have DevTools open. We're looking at our HTML. Matter of fact, as you roll through the HTML, you can see how it highlights. If you're taking other classes for HTML, you'll learn more about that. So at this point, though, one of the things, and I'm going to go back to the CodeSpace, and we'll do this also on the other one, but one of the things is we've written this line, but this line, if it was working correctly, would have shown up down here. And so what there is there's a piece missing where we connect the HTML and the JavaScript. So the HTML says, oh, I know. you have a JavaScript file that you want me to also run or interpret. That's actually something that I will have talked about in week 1 attendance. So right now, because it's not showing up on the console, which, by the way, I could just type it here, right? I could, and you don't have to do this. Hello, right? I could just type it there and it would show up. But that's not the point. The point is that you want your HTML to run your JavaScript file. Okay, so let's actually go do that's a required step. So in here, the required step is in the index file. So in the index file, after the title, I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to type script. Now again, something is trying to help me, so I'm going to let it. I'm going to go, yeah, script's cool. So beginning and ending tag here. So the beginning of the script and ending of script. And you'll learn how we could write code inside of here, but we're not going to. We're going to type src, which is source tab, and it created the equal and the beginning and ending quotes. So this code is saying, hey, I have a script file. I'm going to give you the source, but right now there's nothing I've given you, so it doesn't know. But if I start typing even M, VS Code, smart enough to know, oh, hey, you're talking about the main.js file. I'm going to be like, yep, I sure am. Okay? And let's do that local. Let's do that same thing here. We do script, we do src, okay, and then we'll type main, and then we're good to go. Now what's going to happen here, again, we're not using the get workflow yet. We're only working local. So let's just see if what we did worked. And one of the things that can happen here is it actually can just automatically show up. And let's see, I see it now, automatic without me typing anything, that content. And if I go over to local, it already showed up as well. Because this thing is live server actually will reload generally when you've updated code. Sometimes a little glitchy, but most of the time it works. So now we've done all the things we need to do to set up an HTML, to set up a JavaScript file, to write the code for connecting the two of them together and writing a little bit of code for this. So now we're going to do that version control. But I'm going to come back to something. Now right now, remember how I started with this URL? So right now, this, because it's not been pushed, like if I did W1, you don't have to, it's going to give an error because right now all the work you've done has been on code space or local. So this is the reason, well, one of the reasons, and I just did clear there, for us to do the version control. Okay, so now I can see I have two changes. Cool. And if I wanted to start wherever local or code space, I'm going to do get status. Yep, I have some stuff in week 1, so I'm going to do get add star. Remember, I could do an individual file, but star is nice because it's just wildcarded. And now I've gone from untracked, right, to added the index. So this is my staging part. Get commit dash m. Okay, I'm going to go week 1 setup. Okay, so week 1, so get commit. This is the commands you learned. Remember, you also have them in your public repo. I've given you a markdown file, but you can follow along with me, or if you already have gotten these commands, okay, you're going to get them eventually. Okay, so that's now I have them committed. I'm going to come back here, right? So now committing just means they are now in the repo, but they are not in GitHub. Okay, and if we wanted to see that, I could come back to GitHub, right, the website, and I could look under my public repo. I don't see that week 1 because I haven't done the last step. So I'm going to go ahead before we do that here, and I'm going to go ahead and complete. Oh, I must have. Oh, I know I did this. I don't know why I did that. So this is local, same commands, get commit. Because at this point forward, pretty much these two environments are going to feel the same because because at this point the interface is basically the same. Week 1 setup, okay? All right, so now we've version controlled. We've committed the work we've done. And now if I do get push in whichever environment. Now it's going to push my changes to GitHub. Okay. And again, I would do that locally. Now, you don't want to have both a code space and I'll probably say this in week 1 attendance, but you want to use one or the other until you're used to how things work. And if you want to come talk to me, I'd be happy to tell you, because right now if I was to push my code to GitHub, it is already different and would give me an error, but that's only because I have both of them open. Not to worry about, just a heads up. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to come back to GitHub. I'm going to refresh this. And now I can see I have week 1 and I have that index file, which is awesome, in that main.js file. But this is not what you are going to submit, okay? Because we've done all of this work now, right? So I've walked you through live server. I've shown you the output. I gave you a little Chrome DevTools. Did I call it DevTools? If I didn't, that's what we were looking at. And now we did the workflow, right? Okay. And in this case, I actually already had you tell us about yourselves in here. So what I'm going to do is actually write some new content that you will want to write about. But the most important thing that you will do in here, in your reply, right, is actually now give us that URL. And let me show you what I mean by that. Okay. Remember, right, this was the URL we created. And now by putting W1, that then renders, okay, that index file. And if we right click and hit inspect here, now this is different. This is actually looking at it like you could look at any web page. This is also in a sense, but now I can do this. Your fellow students can do this, and we can see your code running. And then what you will learn to do over time is use these dev tools to watch your code run. Okay. All right, so look for, like I said, I'll change this actually to, because this is more of what I covered in week 1, and I should have done it before I did the recording, but I didn't. So I'll think of something I want you to cover there. And then what you want to do here is give us that URL, right? So that when I come in here, right, so I'm going to show you this is the correct, you don't have to type that, but I want to show you the correct URL is this. And notice what happens. And it's a URL. Notice what happens as soon as I hit enter, it actually creates an href or a link, so that when you can look at each other's content. And you're welcome to add some stuff into your HTML if you want, no problem. Here's where, if you gave me this link, and I just want to show you, not correct, okay? So if you're giving me that link, and you will see it does not render as a web page. And right now it may not jump out at you what the difference is, but over time it definitely will, because we'll be doing work, and when we're looking at our JavaScript, we're really looking at how it renders in a web page. All right, hope this helps you out. Look at whatever I've asked you to do as far as any other written stuff in here, and then I hope you had, oh, by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and close my tabs here, and because I know this is important, I'm going to go ahead and stop my code space. For those of you using code space, you know why this is important, right? And for my local development environment, because everything right now locally and on code space is also what I have out on GitHub. There's my git status should show nothing to commit. All right. Hope this was interesting. I hope you learned something. I know it's always fun for me to think about other ways to describe this. So if you want to chat about any of this, please let me know.